It's time now for the political analysis of Fromm and Fuller. Al Fromm, former political advisor to President Bill Clinton, and Craig Fuller, former political advisor to both presidents Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush. I'm Kat Engst, filling in for our host Dave Whelan, who is out again this week on special assignment. Good morning. It has been a whirlwind 24 hours in Congress, with the House and the Senate passing a bill directing the Justice Department to release all files related to its investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. This comes after a month of vehement opposition from President Trump and most of his allies in Congress to the release of these documents. Now, over the last several days, it has become clear that this measure would pass the House floor, at which point Donald Trump has reversed course and said that he would sign this bill if it made it to his desk, rather than risking the humiliation of losing a political battle. So, Craig, I'm wondering, do you believe that the Epstein affair and Trump's handling of it has fractured the president's political coalition at all? And do you view this as perhaps a slip in the iron grip control that President Trump has had over the GOP?
There is absolutely no doubt that it's created a fracturing within the Republican Party. And it's not just Marjorie Taylor Greene who rose up in probably the most vocal opposition. It's members throughout the ranks of the Republican Party who began to realize something Al and I have talked about for months, that eventually staying with the president was going to cost them. And at the point in time in which the there was this outpouring of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, I think it just became intolerable, uh, and so support began to wane. I also think that Trump has really not been in any time in control of this story, and his people have struggled with it. But one of the things that had to be clear to them was that they were going to lose this vote. It also had to be clear that in losing the vote, and that this story was going to be perpetuated for months. By the way, I think it still will. And I know at one point in this, some months ago, I know I said, and I know Al agrees, any day in which the Epstein story is a major story is a bad day for Donald Trump, because he's not talking about the issues that people elected him to deal with. It's a bad day for Republicans, frankly, because they're in charge of the House and Senate, and it's not talking about anything that they're doing that's significant. And so to allow this story to just continue to run rampant was bound to create a political cost.
I thought that this vote was really inevitable. I can't imagine a Republican who was going to run in a swing district, or a Republican senator in a swing state who wanted to have a vote on the record for covering up a pedophile. And so so basically what happened to Trump in the 11th hour, when he saw that he was going to lose, and probably lose badly, he just tried to jump in front of the train. Uh, while he lost control of this vote, I'm not sure he has really lost control in his mind of the Epstein issue, because I wouldn't bet my last dollar that we're going to see very much of the Epstein files. I mean, last week he, announced that they're going to investigate all the Democrats, and I can't imagine that Trump is going to let the Justice Department, which was made up of his, the leadership now, his complete lackeys, his lawyers, and his lackeys who won't do anything he doesn't want to do. I can't imagine that they're going to wind up releasing files that incriminate Trump. It's an important victory, but I just don't. I'm not sitting with bated breath expecting in the next 2 weeks to see a bunch of new revelations about the Epstein case.
What, though, can Trump do to block the Justice Department from releasing these files?
Well, so my answer to that, Kat, is first of all, I'm not betting on him to do the smart thing. The smart thing would be to find a well-respected law enforcement or a judge or somebody and say, hey, you are in charge of this. And I'm not talking about it anymore. And I want everything out. You go figure out how to do it. You tell the attorney general and her people what to do. They should back away from it. It should, and every time the subject comes up, the answer should be, we have Judge whoever on this. Ask them. I'm not talking about it because every time he talks about it, he makes the story worse. But as I said, I'm not sure he'll do the right thing. And their instinct is always to withhold things. And that the reason that's the wrong thing politically to do, it's the wrong thing ethically to do, but it's the wrong thing politically to do because there's this old notion, there's a well-known notion in Washington. Ultimately, it all comes out. The closer the information drags into the proximity of the 2026 election, the worse it is for Republicans. They ought to have a trusted person putting that information out and get it out of the White House, get it out of the, going into the Situation Room of the White House to debate this is just absurd.
Yeah, but Craig, when you think about Trump, my feeling is that he doesn't care about the smart thing. He just does whatever he wants. He clearly enjoys what he wants, the trappings of being president. And, he wants to live a lavish lifestyle on our expense, and he's going to do whatever he damn well pleases. As we talk about his control over the Republican Party, he's going to lose. All presidents in their second term are on a sliding scale of control because they become more and more lame duck every day. But Trump has one trump card, so to speak, and that's he's got a lapdog speaker. I mean, if somebody would keep the House out of session for 2 months, not swear in a duly elected congressperson for 2 months because he didn't want to vote on the Epstein files while Trump was against that vote. My guess is that while if things come to votes in the Congress, more and more Republicans are going to be independent as we get closer to the election. Uh, I think he's going to have some protection from the speaker and not putting a lot of things before the House and before the Congress where he could get where that split will be shown.
Ken, I want to step back 1 minute on this topic from the partisanship side of it and share one quick story. And it happened in 2018. Now, remember, the Palm Beach Police Department was investigating Epstein in 2005. So this has been going on for some time, but it was back in the news again in 2018. I was out speaking at an event and I said something to the effect that I thought this was going to be a large issue, not because that many people came in contact with Epstein, but because so many people knew someone who had had a really bad experience, rape, incest, or something. And a woman came up to me, and this was a learning moment for me. A woman came up to me and she said, I appreciate what you said and I agree with you, but it's much broader than you think. Because every woman at this event, she said, every woman at this large event has had a moment in her life when she either experienced something bad happening to her or feared for it. And that, she didn't use the word trauma, but that measure of trauma, no matter what the size, hopefully never approaching the dimension of life with Epstein, but whatever that trauma is often never spoken of. It's not a topic of conversation. But what the Epstein case has done is it's raised that back to the surface of hundreds of thousands, indeed probably millions of women who have had a concern at one moment in time that someone was going to do them harm. And that's why this issue is never going to go away. I mean, you cannot put this one back in the proverbial bottle because people understand it. They may not understand tariff strategy against China or what we're doing with the Canadians, or maybe even blowing up ships running drugs. But they understand this, and at least half the population does, and hopefully a few of us on males do too. But this is something that is just it's just visceral with people. And so the inability, as Al says, to for the president to have any empathy whatsoever or any comprehension of the impact this has is going to cost him, I think, considerably over the rest of this term.
Craig, I agree with that, or at least I'd like to agree with that. But Trump has had this incredible history of being able to wiggle his way out of sex scandals. I mean, it's not like it's a surprise that Trump would act guilty of sin in this circumstance because we've been through Access Hollywood, we've been through, his trials for uh, you know, uh, sexual abuse, essentially, uh, found guilty in New York. Had it, and yet it all seems he seems to go get through all of it, but it may be that now. When his political position is weakened, and when he can't when he can't really protect the Republicans the way he used to, and he can't threaten them the way he used to because he's not going to be on the scene forever. I mean, I thought Massey made an interesting point when he said, you want to vote for pedophiles. Trump may protect you this time, but in 2030, he's not going to be around and you want to be around. I mean, so maybe it will finally catch up with him. But boy, we've been talking about his behavior catching up to him for a long time, and it just never seems to. But I do agree with you. It I I think it's not just women. I think it's, uh, basically every American who has any sense of decency knows that this is just about the worst kind of behavior you can have.
I'm wondering what you make of Marjorie Taylor Greene's sort of taking advantage of this uncomfortability that Trump has shown on this issue and speaking directly to that populist base about the fact that Trump is not being transparent on this. And this is sort of one of his biggest campaign promises, if not the crux of the MAGA movement. And it seems like, she was recently on The View, she was on CNN, these traditionally mainstream media publications that a lot of her base is very suspicious of, but she has been able to speak directly to that base, to women in particular, but I think a lot of people are resonating with it. And I'm wondering how, Craig, you think this is going to play out politically for her. Do you think she's going to alienate that base, or do you think that she has the potential to really emerge as an alternative to Trump in leading the MAGA movement here?
Well, now there's a question. I heard it said, and I agree that she read the room. She read the room correctly. The MAGA base, whatever percentage of the Republican Party it represents today, um, was up in arms really about a number of things, but particularly about the Epstein files. And she understood that. And it's something that she found unacceptable for whatever set of reasons. And she, I think, followed her conscience on the one hand. I also think she discovered, if she didn't know it going in, she discovered quickly she was going to almost reemerge suddenly as someone who had broader support because of the positions she was taking against Trump. He totally fell right into the hole that she was digging for him, calling her a traitor, and that only gave her more prominence and made it more difficult for him. Um, I think, though, your notion probably is correct. I'm sure we'll see an exploratory committee before long for Marjorie Taylor Greene for president or some other future role.
Look, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is really an interesting case and an important, really important case because she is original MAGA. I mean, when you think about conspiracy theorists, you think about Marjorie Taylor Greene as being in on the ground floor. And so she has a credibility with the MAGA movement that a lot of Trump's critics don't. And that gives her some leeway. And obviously, as Craig says, I think she's probably looking for to run for higher office, and either in the state of Georgia or for president. And she can't do that as, sort of a nutcase, part of MAGA. but there's another thing as well that Craig alluded to. I mean, Trump's attacks on her that has strengthened her. And it also, I think, will have a sort of a chilling effect on a lot of Republicans who have gone along and are nervous about it. Because what Trump shows is he has loyalty to nobody. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene was there with him from the beginning. She was a fellow traveler on all his crazy stuff. But he thinks nothing of attacking her the minute she has any sort of split with him. And that's got to be something that uh, Republicans who are, all politicians basically, their first instinct is self survival. And that's something that Republicans who have to go up against or have to be in competitive races or have got to take a look at and think about a lot before they jump in to support Trump again on some other crazy thing.
Don't you think, Al, also she made the speaker look even smaller than he is? Suddenly, he's isolated. She's a leading Republican and she's getting a lot more press for the position she's taking. And he's sitting there going, well, wait a minute. It was clearly he just got overrun with the
Yeah,
opposition.
I mean, Mike Johnson's really an interesting case because a year ago we were talking about how he looked bigger than we thought he did, we thought he'd be. But sometimes you just can't, uh, in the end, evade basically who you are and your origins. And he was a very small, sort of narrowly focused congressman when he was picked, uh, and he's really reverted to that, and she has made him look very small.
I'm curious though if you think that this sudden, more widespread popularity for Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to play out well for her in the long run, because I think we've seen this before where former Trump lackeys have, sort of left him, have publicly opposed him. They've been picked up by mainstream media. It seemed like they were gaining popularity, but then Trump was able to basically use that popularity against them and say, well, look at this. They were the whole time they've been against me. They're doing exactly what, the Democrats want them to do. This is in fact not correct. They're rhinos, as he calls them. So do you think that this she can hold on to this and this is going to play out well for her? Or do you think this is just a blip and for a moment she'll be in the media everywhere, and then in a second it'll all be over and we'll go back to the same old?
The big difference, I think, in this case, Kat, is that she won the day. You know, she ends up with a unanimous vote, nearly unanimous vote in the Senate and vote in the House, in support of the position she held. For her and those around her, the big question is what comes next. Do you fall back in line on some of the things he's doing, or do you follow your conscience and try to broaden your own base? Al and I are all about people succeeding in political life because they broaden their base, not diminish it. If she steps right back into a MAGA mentality, she will be right back into diminishing her base, and she's got to, if she has a hope of being on the ticket at the top or in second place in a presidential race down the road or running, for a bigger office somehow, she needs to broaden that base. So what comes next for her is really the critical question.
Yeah, I agree with that. But there's another factor too, and that Trump's not quite the behemoth that he was, even a year ago. His even under the best of circumstances, and they aren't the best of circumstances for him now, his influence and power, even with Republicans, is on the decline. So if she, but and Craig and I can name you a gazillion politicians who were viewed very narrowly in the House or had a very clear profile in the House, but then as they ran for higher office, statewide office, they broadened that profile because, as Craig said, politics is about addition. not subtraction. So if she, it's really up to her. She has that MAGA base, and I suspect she would not lose it. But she has to. Uh, she's going to need more than just this vote. And we're starting to see that she actually is thinking in those terms. I mean, she seems to be a leader on trying to extend the health care subsidies, the Obamacare subsidies, to keep premiums from going up. But if she has a broader outlook and keeps it, then, we'll see. I think she would have a reasonable chance, certainly in Georgia, of statewide, going statewide and winning.
Well, I think we could talk about this all day,
Right.
but we have to leave it there. So, Al Fromm, Craig Fuller, thank you so much for helping us make sense of this political moment, and we'll see you next week.